And maybe that's undeniable, or maybe it's not. Maybe you have an opinion on that. And what's your suggestion to adjust to it, or to embrace it, or in terms of a publishing angle? And
Despite that, with new, technological changes and, copyright law catching up a little bit faster than it used to, meaning in terms of creating, allowing for tariffs and creating new copyright law that would embrace that technology, it definitely has changed the business. Right now I'm talking economically. What used to be a dollar's business is now a penny's business, and everybody's read and heard that about streaming. And certainly people in the music publishing business think that this is, there's some people that would say this is a rip-off, streaming's a rip-off. I have some ideas about what the proper economic model should be, but nobody asks me, unfortunately. But it could be a more viable income for publishers and songwriters alike. But it is a business that's changed from the radio, terrestrial radio, where 100,000 ears were listening to a song, to one set of ears listening to a stream. So you can imagine what difference that makes. So we've all heard I just saw somebody on Facebook saying, there was 10,000 streams today and all these other things. Economically, that would amount to, in terms of revenue, probably less than a penny. It probably, you couldn't even quantify it, actually, how much 10,000 streams, 10,000 sales, or even 10,000 spins when it came to the old school with what we used to call it with SOCAN revenue. In those days, we used to actually say a spin was worth about $1. So you can see the difference and the changes. I do not think that the content users, who are more powerful than the content owners, have a fair fight. I do think that I love technology. It democratizes access. We all know it's fantastic. But different things happen in different countries. We don't stream in Canada because data costs too much. So that's going to affect Canadians, right? As opposed to the US. And equally, their economic model is built on the old terrestrial radio system when it should not be. It should be a percentage of their overall advertising revenue that's given to rights holders. But that's a bigger fight. So definitely in that sense, it has changed the landscape for earning money. And sort of attached to what Rick said, there's only a few who make enough money. And frankly, right now, who makes money are the songwriters from back in the day, because those things are being played over and over again. They are being bought by music publishers like BMG because they are what we call evergreen copyrights. Now, having said that, the flip side is that creatively, the internet does allow a democracy of access, meaning that if I hear of somebody or, something, I can find that person easily. If you do not have a website or have any, SoundCloud or any kind of account like that, you're not going to be successful in this business, because we need to be able to find you if we hear about you. There are, overnight success stories that we hear that sound like overnight success stories that are about the industry, but they're myths. Walk Off the Earth doing the cover version of Goche's song is a perfect example of that. Goche couldn't get arrested as a songwriter. He'd been around a long time, and then this band had this cool video from Burlington, and they put it up and blah blah in the world, and he got a deal out of it. I don't know how well he's doing now, but that's kind of, those things happen. But it's not like he didn't have his 10,000 hours of waiting for that break that may or may never happen. So there's a lot of noise out there on the internet as well, right? Everybody has access to it. So now it's still back to the old days, like Rick was talking about. The cream does rise to the top. And that's a positive and negative about the industry. We all can find it, but there's so much noise. How are we actually going to, separate the wheat from the chaff anymore? Could I use more analogies? I don't know. So yeah, I just think that that's, that kind of sums it up. It feels like we've gone that whole 360, not 180. We're going to come back to cream having to rise to the top. There's going to be another way that we're going to find those acts and songwriters creatively. There's a lot of people out there trying to find it, a lot fewer people, because we do have the internet, meaning staff, not like the old days where there had to be somebody somewhere at a gig or something like that. But as I say, and then circling back, economically, in terms of revenues, sure, they've gone down. They've gone down for everything. We've never recovered, even from mechanical versus digital sales. We've never come back from that as successfully as we would have. I mean, what was I watching the other night? Oh yeah, I was watching a documentary on Janis Joplin, and they talk about, I think it was her first album or something in like a week, selling like 1 million records, and you're just like, your brain doesn't even hear that anymore. It's just such a different time, and again, that was the only medium that they had. So of course, that's the only time you would hear it. But you have to buy the record, but it has changed. Where it's going to fall into place, I just think that it's going to fall into place when the government catches up to technology. It's getting better, but it's not there. And as I say, what incenses me is that the streaming services rely on the old model when the old model doesn't exist. They eschew it. So that's where the changes need to come. It shouldn't be pennies per stream based on an old model. It should be advertising revenue, or subscription revenue, which we know is a lot of money being shared with the content owners. Like I've always said for years, is radio stations existed to sell Coke and Nikes. They didn't exist to promote music. You wouldn't be listening to their advertisers unless they gave you something you wanted to listen to.